My friend Will Pertz asked me to help him build an app. And I immediately felt this pang of regret because I had tried to learn how to code, but I quit. So I knew I couldn't help him build the app, and that was a real bummer because building an app seemed like a really cool thing to do. Now, that pang of regret, that came from recognizing a pattern within myself. I am a quitter. You see, I'm 40 years old, but I've had 60 jobs. And I know that sounds like some number I just made up, but I actually wrote them all down. 60 jobs. I mean, name a crappy job. I've done it. Best Buy, you bet. Barista, bingo. Bar room bouncer, bouncity, bounce, bounce, bounce. And that's just the bees. But it's not just my jobs. My ukulele sits in the corner with my German language textbook and that video game design course I started. And when I remember these failures, I feel this pang of regret in my chest. And I feel myself slipping and sinking into the abyss of my own insignificance. And I start to wonder about my life choices. Have I wasted my time? Have I wasted my life? Are the very things that I'm drawn to, my likes, my hobbies, and my skills, just a poorly designed mosaic? And then I feel guilty because I think about all this time I spend unwinding, all these time killers, all these time sucks that have sucked away my true potential. And then I feel it again. I feel myself at war with my own insignificance, at times wanting to surrender entirely to it. I worry that I'm not building up to anything. I worry that instead what I'm doing is making a pile. Yeah, I draw a lot of pictures, I write a lot of stories, and I design a whole lot of lesson plans. But what is it leading to? Because to be honest with you, it feels like I'm just making a giant tower of crap. Another poem, another sketch. That pile, it gets bigger. And I look at that pile and I feel guilty. It doesn't look right. It doesn't look productive. And I know that highly successful people are productive and they're proactive and that you should be proactive too. Why are you relaxing? Why are you stopping to breathe? But what if that voice is wrong? What if all these time killers and these time sucks that I've so labeled are actually essential bits of my personality needing to express themselves? And what if my whole life I have been carefully, or perhaps subconsciously, building my very own Batman belt? You see, when Batman was in a pickle and all seemed lost, Batman would remember who he was. He was Batman. So at that right moment in time, Batman would reach toward his belt and he'd grab that one thing he needed, whether that was a freeze grenade or a scuba gear pipe or some shark repellent. And Batman, he would save the day. You have these pouches on your belt. You have these skills at your fingertips, and they are everything that make you you. You have a Batman belt. And you know what that makes you, don't you? It makes you Batman. I'm different. I have weird, random things I like to do. I have strange skills, and these seemingly useless random skills are all essential bits of my Batman belt. When I was 3 years old, I remember watching my older brother, John. And John was an amazing artist, way beyond any other kid his age. And I would stare at him, and he'd draw these wonderful pictures of these samurai. And these samurai had these beautiful samurai swords, and they'd be cutting off the heads of other samurai. And I'd look at those samurais with their popped-off heads, and I would stare at the next stem, and from the next stem would spurt a glorious raspberry fountain of blood. And I would look at that kind of drawing, and I would say to myself at the tender age of 3 years old, yes, that is what I want to do with my life. So I doodled on every scrap of paper I could get my hands on. In art school, in high school, I started an art club, and then I won the art award. And one of my teachers was a teacher by the name of Father Rafe Wright. And he asked me, at the age of 17 years old, he said, "Kevin, will you please illustrate my next book?" And he was already a published author. And he was already also an illustrator, so there was a great compliment to me. But I said, yeah. And we worked together. And over the next 10 years, we got 3 different books published: Wild, Wilder, and Wildest. These were 3 animal alphabet poetry books, and each letter of the alphabet came with a poem and a picture to go with it. Here's the picture of a caterpillar I drew, looking up into the night sky, dreaming of flight. But there are 2 conclusions you can draw from this little story. On the one hand, despite all that time and effort that went into it, no real royalties ever came out of this collaboration. So you might say, we failed. You might say I wasted my time. But there's that other side of things that we sometimes don't see too clearly when we despair our losses. You see, I got to spend 10 years with Father Rafe Wright. And he would be my Doc Emmett Brown, and I'd be his Marty McFly. And we would go to Tippins, and we'd eat hot apple pie and cold ice cream. And it was there that we discussed and collaborated and produced hundreds of poems and drawings. And not only did that experience change the way I make images and draw pictures, but it also changed the way I collaborate with other people and how I work toward long-term projects. So that's a skill that I get to have forever, and I'm going to keep it right here on my Batman belt in case I need it for later. My friend, Will Pertz, he asked me to help him build an app, and I felt this pang of regret. But then I remembered, well, I can draw. When I was 12 years old, I had to go to the dentist to get a tooth pulled, and I didn't want to go because I had had this previous traumatic experience. So I said, "No, Mom, no, I'm not going." And she said, "Kevin?" And my mother, she knew me very well, and she knew that I could be bribed. So she said, "Kevin, if you go to a very special kid dentist I found you, I will buy you a brand new Scrabble board." I really wanted that Scrabble board. So I went to the dentist. I had another traumatic experience, but I got my Scrabble board. And I became obsessed with Scrabble. I memorized every 2- and 3-letter word. I memorized all the likeliest bingos. I bought every dictionary when it came out, and I went to my first tournament, and I won. And then the Scrabble magazine, they called me up, and they wanted an interview. And I even went so far as to create my own variant of Scrabble, dubbed Nickolai Scrabble. And when you're crazy for Scrabble, you start to see anagrams everywhere. And so I started to see them everywhere I went. I looked at my own mother's name, and I saw Beatrice Nickolai, and it became OCEANIC Bike Trail. I looked at my long, overly complicated name, Kevin Paul Sebastian Nickolai, and it slowly became, it took a little doing, but I finally saw it, cute pink, seasonal, lava, bikini. And when you love anagrams like me, that naturally begets another love of palindromes. So I started to make a few of my own palindromes, such as Smug Stinkworm, Mr. Ow, knits gums, and Wonder Stop Still. If I mid time, I fill its spots red now. And Anna, Nabshaw's banana. Useless skill? Maybe. Maybe. Or maybe it just goes into my Batman belt. My friend Will Pertz asked me to help him build an app, but then I remembered, after that pang of regret, that I can draw and I can do cool stuff with words. Something about this challenge that Will gave to me, it made me think of an artist by the name of Kay Rosen. Kay Rosen is this artist I saw in Chicago, and she has this really cool point of view with words. She kind of looks at how words behave and interact with the human mind. I really like the things she does with words. She has this way of focusing on how words kind of fold and turn and twist. Another thing that she does sometimes that I notice is she kind of focuses more on a visual rhyme than an audio rhyme. And this is kind of the things that I like to play with too. I like to play with, this is one of my pieces, I like to play with how words can be turned upside down and you can find things in there. I also like to find that visual rhyme that's more important than the audio rhyme. Because sometimes there's something a little bit more to the visual truth than that audio truth. But I have to admit, sometimes it's fun to do a little audio rhyme too. So I thought of Kay Rosen, and I went to this trivia night in Daejeon. And at this trivia night, one of the categories was you had to anagram bits of the periodic table. And since my team had me on it, we did very well. We won the category, we won the night. But I went home, and I couldn't get the periodic table out of my mind. So I pulled it up, and I looked at it. And I stared at it for a long time. And I thought it was beautiful, and it reminded me of a Scrabble board. And I thought of Kay Rosen again. And then I saw something pop out after I thought, what would Kay Rosen think? And the thing that popped out was, of the 118 elements up here, there are 14 elements that are derived from a single letter. I took a look at those letters, and I thought, I wonder if I can move them around and anagram them and make a phrase. And then I saw something. Bunch of VP whiskey. And I like that phrase. It helped me remember what are the 14 elements that only need one letter. And then I took that phrase, and I kind of turned it inside out and made it into a word puzzle. And I sent off this word puzzle to all the professors at my university I worked at. And I made kind of a total jackass of myself in the process of doing that. But something interesting happened. The professors, they started to argue over it and fight over it. They'd ask me for more hints. One of the professors told me that she printed out this puzzle and taped it at her wall, staring at it night after night. And I got such a glee of doing this. I kept on doing this. Every few weeks, I'd sound out another puzzle to all the people at my work, annoying all of them. But I did it for the sake of my Batman belt. My friend Will Pertz asked me to help him build an app. And I felt that pang of regret. But then I remembered, well, I can draw, I do cool stuff with words, and I make puzzles. So, Will, yeah, Kevin, what if I draw some pictures, right? That's my skill. And these pictures are kind of the word puzzle that people have to solve. So I can kind of use all these skills I have. So, in early 2018, I started working on an app called Kevin's Proverbs. And I drew 2 to 3 proverbs a day. And before you knew it, we had 105 proverbs like this. And then, on August 21st, 2018, this app went live. And you could get it on your iPhone, any iPhone in the world. And me and Will, we were ecstatic about this because we were honest to God, actual app developers. And we were so happy there were tears of joy because this was a battle. You see, there's 114 regulations you have to contend with. There are 16 official reasons to be rejected, and there are 40,000 rejections per week. So when our app sailed through on the first try, I called everyone I knew. I told all my family, all my friends, all my coworkers. I said, get this app! And my mother, God bless my mother, she was one of the biggest boosters of the app, and she would call me on the phone because she was one of the first ones to figure out that when you solve 10 puzzles, you get an egg, right? So my mother would call me up on the phone and say, Kevin, I got another egg. And I'd say, way to go, Mom. Thanks for the Scrabble board. But we also started to get these notifications about how many downloads. 50 downloads, great. 100, wow. 150, 200 downloads, that's fantastic. 201, 202, 203. And then it just kind of fizzled. And I started to feel that again. I started to feel like I wasted my time. I started to feel like I'm insignificant. I realized that there's a lot of things that I do in life is just for the sake of self-validation. Get a book published, win a Scrabble tournament, get the Apple company to say, I deem you worthy app developer. But in the end, those books, they stopped getting printed. That Scrabble tournament money's long been spent, and nearly everyone has forgotten about Kevin's Proverbs, except for my mother, who unlocked another egg last week. We have been taught to aim for self-optimization, to be proactive, to hone ourself and focus, to continue onward toward that quest for perfection, to up our salary, to get the promotion, to promote the promotion, to promote the promoting of the promotion. In the end, we are all inevitably feeling tired and guilty. We're in a new era, an era that delivers unto some of us a sense of utter inefficiency. You hear the message again and again, when you fail, that you are insignificant. That's a lie. You are enough. I say unwind. I say doodle. I say play. I say dance like a fool and mess around, because when you screw around with the stuff that you want to screw around with and you play with the stuff you love to play with, you are engaging in life's most vital process, because it is in those moments that you are building yourself, you are building your identity, and you are carving out room for your soul on this earth. Let your soul breathe. You are significant. After all, you're Batman. And this is your Batman belt. Thank you.